everyone. Welcome to episode 11 of the Pilot on NFL podcast, brought to you by the Props Network. I am Steve Clark, one of your hosts, joined, as always, by my good pal, Joel Walkowski. What's up, Joel?
Hey, how are we, listeners? We are both coming to you from the hotbeds of the pandemic, Arizona and Florida. What are we, MLB spring training? Nah, we don't like that sport. We love the NFL. It is an honor, an absolute privilege to be here with 52-yard Steve Clark.
That's right. I'll be back in New York. I'm going back up on Friday.
Welcome back. I'm just waiting to get a little bit of work from my primary employer, and as soon as that happens, I'll have that 14-day quarantine. I'm sure we'll put a lot of content out during that time, seeing as we'll be tethered to our apartments.
Yeah.
So that'll be a lot of fun for everybody. And hey, let's plug ourselves.
Okay.
In between our last two episodes, you put out that video of you attempting the 52-yard field goals.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's one of the better things Props Network has ever put out.
Wow.
So,
wow. Is that an indictment on Props Network, or is that a compliment to the video?
That's praising you, because I host this podcast with you every week. I love doing it, but you're so affable and charming. And in that video, it was just a different Steve.
Yeah, man.
He was angry talking to the camera. He was right to the point. Like,
dude, I had to put my haters down. Here's another thing that has really upset me. I have a bombshell to drop on the show right now. I teased this to you in a text, but
he wouldn't tell me.
I wouldn't tell you.
He brought it up like Monday night. It's like, hey, I've got something big. You're gonna have to wait 36 hours. And my immediate guesses were A, Steve hit a 53-yard field goal, which pretty good guess, and B, Steve got cast on the next season of Survivor. And then I told him that, and then he replied with just too much Survivor knowledge.
I wish either of those things were true, but this is pretty impressive. And I texted this to a couple friends, and none of them believed me. I want to see if you believe me. I've been running a lot since I've been in Florida. I've been in Florida for over 6 weeks. I've been running every week. You know, I've worked up to like a 5K, run that pretty easily now. So on Monday, I decided I wanted to see how fast I could run just 1 mile. So
Did you break a 4-minute mile?
Well, so what is your guess?
I think you broke 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You run a 5-minute mile?
I ran a mile in 4 minutes and 25 seconds.
That's insane.
So here's the thing. A lot of people are not going to believe me as I say this. I texted a few friends. Only one of them believed me. I have a witness. If we need to call my witness onto the show at some point, I will. My dad timed me on his phone. I timed it on a watch. We were within 1 second of each other on our times. 425 mile.
That's incredible. What have you been doing? Where did you start from? How is that even possible?
So my previous best mile time before this was like 5:15 about 4 years ago, which I thought was like incredible. So this was completely out of the blue. I thought I would get 5 minutes maybe. All I've been doing is I've like been working out every day, running a little bit longer distance than usual to get my endurance up, I guess. Because the mile to me was like, I was running pretty fast the whole time. I was shocked with myself.
Yeah, and I imagine it's Florida, so you're contending with the humidity. You're contending with the heat.
I did it at like 8:30 at night, so it was dusk.
Okay.
It was
my next question was what time it happened. So that's amazing. I'm gonna want to see that endurance when we return to the basketball court. So
right.
like I believe you, but you have to deal with the second set of raised expectations that go along with me buying into this claim. So be ready to take me off the dribble. Be ready to draw fouls, and you get that rebound, Draymond Green style. You get it up and you go.
Yeah, I'm shocked that you believe me.
I believe you. You're young enough to make it happen. And did this change your beliefs in load management?
Interesting.
Because you had like 2 months of just sitting around. You couldn't do anything. You were stuck in Crown Heights.
Yep.
And now you're just running a 4.5-minute mile.
Yeah.
I think it might have more to do with the rest rather than the
You're probably right. Yeah, honestly. So that's the scary thing about going back to New York is that I won't be able to do any of the stuff I've been doing here.
But
I'm going to lose it.
Hoops are up. Good friend of the
Hoops
Props
are up?
Network. Yeah, Ethan S.P.'s playing in Crown Heights every day.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's great news.
yeah, I don't have a job right now, so I legitimately have a plan to hustle at courts in Crown Heights with my friend Ethan. Like, I'll just
That
wear a button up
rules.
and my glasses, and then he'll say, like, I'll go with that guy. And then we play pretty well together.
I'm not going to play with people for a while. I'll go shoot, but I'm definitely not going to play with other people.
I grew up watching Rip Hamilton. I got no problem taking the court in a mask, baby.
That rules. Yeah, maybe I'll wear a mask and play some one-on-one with someone I trust, like you. We should meet up and play some one-on-one.
Let's do it. I've been trying to get Luke Moniz to drive halfway and meet me out here and play one-on-one versus to 100. I think he's down for it, actually. So that'll be fun. And like Luke, I think, no offense, Luke's a tougher matchup for me than you are because
he's huge. Yeah,
he's 6'8", he's 260. I get thrown around.
Yeah,
I think that'll be a good matchup. I think if I were to play Steve one-on-one to 100, I think I'd beat him.
I think you would win too.
100 to 84,
80 something. Yeah, because
yeah.
If my shot was on, I think I could win, but it would have to be like a really good day for me.
Yeah, and I think I have the length to give your shot troubles. Like my arms are pretty long. Yeah. Damn, this is definitely what an NFL podcast is about.
Yeah, let's talk about football.
You are Props Network, good bosses. I'm sorry. I was just talking before we got on the air about how I like basketball to the point where I think I'm a little bit autistic, and we'll call that last segment Exhibit A. The fact is the NFL, they're kicking into high gear if they can get the union on the same page for training camp reporting.
Yeah. So the latest is that they're testing people they'll be testing players every day for the first 2 weeks.
And did you see the NFL's yearly budget for COVID tests?
$75
million.
Yeah.
It's an insane amount, but they do need to do this, especially because, like, you're not going to be able to put these NFL teams in protective bubbles. These are 53 to 68 guys. It's not like it's the NBA where it's 12 dudes.
Right.
Half of them are going to be gone in 3 weeks. And then, Mark Davis, owner of the Raiders, he came out and said there are 3 potential plans for the season. 1, play it out normally. 2, push it back 4 weeks, which could be fine. Or 3, cancel the season altogether. And I think
I think option 2 is probably what we're going to see.
Yeah, and I did some digging on it last night, and I believe the NFL has a hold on Tampa hotels up to 4 weeks after the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. And it wouldn't like the weather wouldn't be that bad starting in November versus starting in September. I mean, it'd be more cold games, but I think they could. That seems like the most reasonable thing because they really haven't done anything since March to prepare themselves for what's to come. I think they just assumed it would be over by now or something.
Yeah, in the NFL, they were really given the luxury of time and they made no accommodations of the sort. Of course, we didn't know how the country would react. We didn't know that wearing masks would become a political issue.
Problem. Yeah.
Like a certain segment of the population does not believe the plague exists. So I don't blame the NFL for not seeing these complications coming.
Right.
But we are going to have a loaded season. Why? I wish they would have moved the whole thing to New Zealand, but
that'd be so sick. What are you going to do? Oh man, New Zealand would never let 500 Americans in though.
Yeah,
they're smarter than that.
And 500 Americans is
10 teams.
One division.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot see this season going off without a hitch. I think there's going to be a lot of problems.
And we do know that the biggest story in the NFL is what's going on with Washington. We do have a guest, Alison Klemp. She is a good friend of mine. She's a great comedian, and she's one of the most politically active people I know, but she's also a diehard Washington fan. So I figure with these allegations coming up, this is the best person to talk to. And then I've got so much research on Dan Snyder's history. That'll be fun.
Dirtbag.
But Steve, take the wheel. let's get through the biggest stories going on in the NFL.
Yeah. So first of all, and we're just going to talk about this really briefly because Joel and I don't have much room to speak on this, but Deshaun Jackson posted a series of anti-Semitic Instagram posts. It's been a couple of weeks now. I just wanted to make sure we talked about this on our podcast because there has been so much silence around the NFL, around sports in general about this issue. Like, people aren't really speaking up against what Deshaun Jackson and many other athletes have been saying. A lot of people are saying it's a lack of education, that a lot of these players don't know what they're saying is incorrect. I think that, sure, you can say that, but at the end of the day, you need to apologize for what you said. Deshaun has come out and apologized. Other athletes have not apologized for what they've said. They've kind of doubled down on it. Steven Jackson from the NBA is one of those people. So it's an issue. It's really eye-opening just seeing how anti-Semitic, like, a group of people are, like, athletes, and how well the Jewish athlete population, which is very small, Julian Edelman, Mitchell Schwartz, have responded to this. How, like, they've taken the high road. They've really responded in a way that's like a learning experience for everyone, which is great.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to put out a bad piece of information, and Deshaun Jackson has he entered the public consciousness by when he announced his intent to go to UC Berkeley. He spurned USC. He said it was too easy to win a Heisman there, and said he was going to go be a Golden Bear. So he loves riling people up. And, was he misinformed with those posts? Yes. Has he taken great strides? Has he accepted a trip to Auschwitz?
Yeah.
So he deserves credit for that. Like,
exactly.
He's evolved, and I'm not going to vilify him for one mistake when, you know what, I've enjoyed him for just kind of like taking the spotlight recklessly. And you know what, if he had those impulses during a loaded chapter of American history, I'm not going to vilify the man for that. And of course, this was exacerbated by the leadership of the Philadelphia Eagles, are demographically more Jewish than any other franchise in the NFL, with both, their general manager and their ownerships are Jewish American men.
Yep. I believe the GM is, like, he owns a production company, and they're currently creating a documentary about Hitler and the Holocaust. So it's just like crazy timing all around. The whole situation sucks, honestly. Like, it's good. It's a good learning experience for everyone. I hope that a lot of young people are seeing what's happening right now and understanding that, like, certain things you may have been taught are hateful, and to, do your own research and look deeper than just maybe seeing a quote and agreeing with it. So it's just a learning experience overall. And I hope that the NFL can take some sort of initiative with this to bring to light, awareness of anti-Semitism along with the BLM movement. It's all the same. It's all the same idea of hate. So they need to, wipe it out entirely.
And the thing is, if this happened at any other point in the NFL history, would it have been an issue? Because the NFL just decided BLM was an important issue about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, I have some trepidations about how much the NFL actually cares about this issue versus how much they need to address it from a PR point of view.
It's a totally PR thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And it is fun to see, like, some of the reactions from players coming in on the other side. Like, a Pittsburgh offensive lineman put out a video of him trying Jewish foods. Like, that's the lowest common denominator way to combat anti-Semitism. It's like, oh, you know what? Knish is a great food.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this borscht. These people are fine. And this would be a good point to put out in the episode that I've got a lot of Jewish blood on my father's side. My mother's Irish Catholic, so I won't be there. So maybe I will slightly, throw those accolades out there.
Oh yeah, I'm about to marry a Jewish woman.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Look at us. We're between the two of us. We almost make a Jewish person.
My favorite stand-up joke that I've seen in the last year was Billy Wayne Davis. He was following Blake Griffin at New York Comedy Club, which is unrelated. That's just a flex here. Boom. He said he talked about having a baby with his Jewish wife. He's like, look at me. I made a Jew. So, you can take that bit if you decide to enter the toxic world of stand-up comedy.
Yeah,
Steve.
yeah. But yeah, that's all we really need to say about that.
But let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about the feel-good story of the year happening in the NFL. Gosh, I cannot wait.
What is this for you? Cam Newton to the
Cam
Patriots?
Newton to the Patriots. Is there a lightning rod for racists watching football more than Cam Newton? Like, there's talk about his outfits. There's talk about it. He's been under the microscope every step of his career. He's responded to every criticism, and by all accounts, he's just been the best guy every step of the way.
Totally.
And of course, Carolina had to do a lot of changes, which I will address in a bit. But you know what? I believe Josh McDaniels is a offensive genius. I know Bill Belichick has made his mark on not being dependent on scheme. No one's more willing to throw their scheme away than Bill Belichick.
Yep.
You will know that as a Rams fan watching their first Super Bowl victory over you guys.
Yep.
So I think you're going to see go ahead, Steve. I'm talking too much.
No, it's going to be really exciting. Have you seen the photos of him? He switched over to a vegan diet. He said he's feeling better than ever. I like having Cam Newton, if he's even at like 80% of his potential from like 5 years ago, like they're scary again. It's all Bill Belichick.
Yeah, and Cam gets talked about as an inaccurate quarterback, which there is some credence to.
Sure.
But over the past 2 seasons in which he's been healthy, his completion percentage on underneath routes is higher than any other NFL quarterback.
Yep.
So I think you are seeing like a pretty big commitment to greatness from the New England Patriots. In addition to Cam making all these strides, Mohamed Sanu has a coach living with him in quarantine.
A full-time football coach living with him.
That's incredible. That is dedication. And you know what? New England, they do things right. And like, it's all about the culture there. We're going to talk about Washington, but like, there's a way of doing things in New England, and you're seeing these new Patriots buy in to a level that wouldn't be expected on any other team. But in New England, it's basically the norm.
Yeah. They shot up to being the favorites to win the AFC East again, obviously. I don't know. I probably won't touch that just because we don't know what Cam is really going to do, but it's hard to bet against Belichick. And it's so exciting that Cam is in a place where he can thrive.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep the same AFC East betting strategy I've had all off season. I am bullish on the Dolphins. I think what? A laugh? Steve laughs at me. We see a team with a good coach that is clearly building a culture with that team played for Brian Flores the second half of last season. You're adding a huge free agent haul. You're adding the best rookie draft class. And are the Jets and Bills actually these amazing talent-laden rosters? No, I think Miami's going to win over 8 games.
I can see them winning 8 games. I just don't. It's hard to bet against the Patriots, period. And then I think the Dolphins will take a couple more years. Like, are they going to throw 2 out there week 1 without having any snaps?
Yeah, and the odds of that are plus 275 for any of our listeners. And you know what? If any quarterback is ready to make this tradition, it is probably Tua.
Yeah, he's probably the most NFL ready right now.
Yeah, I mean, dude played at a pro-style offense with pro-ready receivers for it's hard to measure how long Tua played college football due to when he came in and how he was there.
Yeah.
It was like one half of one game in one season, then a whole season, then 2/3 of another season.
Yeah.
So who knows? We know Tua is good. We know Miami will be feisty. And aside from that, New England's probably the way to go.
Yeah. The biggest contract in NFL history was signed. Patrick Mahomes, 10-year, $503 million contract extension. Insane. He's really only on the hook for 5 years? Isn't that kind of how the contract plays out?
Yeah, 5 years. What would have to happen for them to cut Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
I don't think there is a foreseeable thing. Yeah, and Patrick Mahomes, like, he also took less money than he needed to because he left money out there for Chris Jones. Like,
Yeah.
apparently after he signed, the first text message he sent was to Chris Jones saying, "I left some on the table for you."
Wow. That's so sick. And still $500 million.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, and I think this is great value for the Chiefs because what are the second contracts going to look like for every other quarterback
Oh,
that's
yeah.
getting an extension?
Yep.
You know Lamar Jackson's going to be in that, like,
Oh, and Dak.
level.
There's even rumors that Dak's contract will be similar to what Pat just signed, and Mahomes is like way better than Dak.
Yeah, God bless the Dallas Cowboys not locking him up 2 years ago for a lesser contract figure, even though every metric shows where these NFL quarterback contracts are going.
Yeah.
See, I have no problem with this Pat Mahomes contract because you know Josh Allen will be making the same amount in 3 seasons.
Yeah, there were a few contract extensions. Derrick Henry signed a 4-year, $50 million contract extension. I don't know. Spending that much money on running backs has never really paid off for an NFL team. I speak from experience with the Todd Gurley deal. It just like makes me scared whenever you pay a running back that much.
Yeah, especially when you pay a running back that much, when you've lost one of your starting O-linemen, when you've lost your run-stopping defensive tackle. So they're making a commitment to Derrick Henry, but I wish I could see the commitment to the things that allowed Derrick Henry to succeed.
Yeah.
Because if their run defense takes a step back, if their run blocking takes a step back, he's not the same player.
Yep. Yeah. I don't even know if the Titans will win their division this year. It's hard to say.
Well, we have 3 bets that we're going to be staying away from, and I think I've foreshadowed a lot of them so far. We'll get there in like 5 minutes.
Myles Garrett signed a 5-year, $125 million contract extension. I think for the Browns, they've got to be happy that they drafted a guy that they actually want to keep. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, and, you know, he is a rare specimen as a defensive end, and I'm not going to vilify him at all. That guy's track record outside of one incident with the most unlikable quarterback in the NFL is spotless.
Yeah, he's a really intelligent dude, really like down to earth.
Yeah, and he's a good fit with Cleveland. And like, if Cleveland can not buy into their own hype, if they can build a conservative offensive model around giving the ball to Nick Chubb and then fortify that, like, the combination of Myles Garrett with Denzel Ward kind of is a good ingredient. Those are great ingredients to make a really effective defense.
If they're coached well, the Browns should win, 9 or 10 games.
Yeah, I see the Browns as a wild card team for sure going in this season. I'm much lower on the Pittsburgh Steelers than a lot of people are.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see Ben having a meaningful comeback. He's like, just from a broad perspective, I think there's a lot of good opportunities for gamblers in the fact that the media and the presentation of football treats every aging quarterback like they're Tom Brady. That's the exception. That's not the rule.
Correct.
Like, the Saints would have been better off if they moved on from Drew Brees after last offseason.
Yeah, interesting.
And now we've got these teams, they're going into the 2020 season, and they're all in behind Roethlisberger,
Phillip Rivers,
Drew Brees. There's going to be a reckoning for these guys.
Yeah. We kind of touched on this before, but the preseason has officially been canceled. And meanwhile, Hard Knocks is still supposed to air in 2 weeks. So that'll be a fun Hard Knocks.
Is it going to be 2 Hard Knocks?
It's going to be yeah, they're covering 2 teams.
Okay, so they can divide the content. You know there's going to be a lot of, like, riffs of Jared Goff putting on a mask.
Yeah.
Of Aaron Donald going through his breathing techniques. They're going to have a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of weight room stuff, not a lot of football.
Yeah, and I texted you about this. I think I might put a few shekels on the Rams Super Bowl odds, 50-1.
Sure, like, that's good odds, but there's like, they're the 3rd best team in their division.
I think there's one great team in that division, and you could just pick names for the others. I love the Seattle Seahawks. I think there's going to be a huge regression from the San Francisco 49ers.
We'll talk about that a little later too. That's one of my stay away bets.
Should we get into that now? That's a fun convo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Before we do, we have a happy trails. Michael Bennett, great career, really fun to watch. He retired today.
Yep.
It's got to be the first time an NFL player has announced their retirement in the New Yorker.
Yeah, what the heck was that?
And just props to Michael Bennett. I will always remember him for the greatest quote in NFL history. He was asked about my favorite player, Matthew Stafford. He says, I don't like Matt Stafford too much. He's from Dallas. They killed JFK. I hold that against him.
That rules.
Yeah, 20 years before he was born, he takes it personally against Matthew Stafford. And personally, I love to see it. As someone who is triumphing the conspiracy theory of the JFK curse of the Detroit Lions. If you haven't heard before, the Ford family purchased the Lions.
That's right.
The day of JFK's assassination. So it's all building in. Matthew Stafford is involved with the JFK assassination because he's the quarterback of the Detroit Lions. Imagine Oliver Stone makes this version of JFK. It's just a bald dipshit talking about rifle-armed quarterbacks for 3 hours.
Who are not even close to being born yet.
Yeah. It's the fetus, you see? Kevin Costner's like, man, I should have stuck to baseball movies. It would still be a less outlandish NFL film than Draft Day.
Draft Day is so crazy. When's the last time you watched Draft Day?
April 23rd.
It rules. I love that movie, and it is out of control. We should rewatch that and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it would have as much pertinence to the NFL as the first 10 minutes of this podcast.
Absolutely.
So it seems perfect for us.
All right, let's talk about betting for a minute here. In honor of what you should be doing, which is socially distancing, we're going to pick some bets that you should stay away from, that you should social distance yourself from for the 2020 NFL season. I'll start here.
Are we going tit for tat here?
Let's go tit for tat. I'll go first. I'm going to stay away from picking any team other than the Chiefs or the Ravens to win the AFC Championship. With no preseason and a really limited training camp, you're going to want teams with a lot of continuity and with a really good quarterback. So I'm taking the Chiefs because they're bringing back, 20 of their 22 starters. Taking the Ravens because they got Lamar Jackson. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the Chiefs at plus 300, and I'm going to take the Ravens at plus 325. I'm going to take both of them. And I'm going to make money because one of them is going to win the AFC. And I'm not.
Yeah, and I'll actually.
Who else is the Patriots? I think are next at plus 900. I'm not touching that.
Yeah, and I agree with your bet here, but I would wonder if you want to take it a step further. Rather than the AFC, why not the Super Bowl? If you can have Chiefs and Ravens versus the field, I haven't seen that line offered, but I imagine it would be around like plus 450.
Yeah, if that was available, I would definitely take that.
Yeah, so that's something I want to do in with these new seasons starting up soon. I think that could be a really fun way to gamble on them. With the NBA, I'm probably going to see if I can find Clippers-Lakers versus the field.
Yep.
And the NFL, these teams are loaded. There's so much continuity from both of them. It's going to be hard for these interchangeable parts to compete.
And it does feel like a big drop-off in the AFC after those two teams. The AFC South is not that strong, and the AFC East now is – you don't know how strong it's going to be.
Yeah, and so I'll go with my first one. I believe in strong opinions weakly held. So I've been bullish on the Carolina Panthers in this podcast. I think the combination of Teddy Bridgewater and Christian McCaffrey will have them playing in a lot of third and shorts. Yeah. However, I have to evolve given the new information. Continuity matters this year, and according to Field Yates, who's had a best NFL Twitter, I think, He says that they have to replace 49% of their snaps for last season, and it's going to take them a while to hit their stride.
Yeah. Well, yeah, new quarterback, new head coach. That's tough to just jump into a regular season game with. So yeah, I that's a good bet, a good stay away.
And it's a new head coach that is dependent on culture. Culture takes a little bit longer to instill than other things. And, hopefully it's not another Matt Patricia where you're just waiting on the culture in year 3. So what's your second bet?
Another thing I'm staying away from is all Bucks playoff bets. Right now, they're the 3rd favorite to win the NFC at plus 700. Not touching that. They're 5th favorite to win the Super Bowl at plus 1,400. Not touching that. It's a lot of what this is, I think, is odds makers trying to take advantage of the name recognition of Tom Brady. And the Bucks were decent last year, and a lot of people think with Tom Brady, they can come in and win 3 or 4 more games and make a Super Bowl run. I'm not seeing it. I'm staying away. These odds are inflated to the point where they're trying to, prey on casual bettors who love Tom Brady.
Yeah, and it's just like you don't want to have futures on a public team. Like whatever team has Tom Brady gets treated by Vegas the way the Dallas Cowboys get treated.
Yep.
And I think there are some – if you look at the history of – we talked about this with Fitzy, who thinks the opposite.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks in their first year in a Bruce Arians offense struggle, and that includes really responsible quarterbacks like Andrew Luck and Carson Palmer. So, there's a lot of questions on that offense, and –
the defense is just middle of the road, too. It's not like they had an incredible defense to prop up the offense last year. So
yeah, it kind of seems like I might want to take a flyer on Atlanta here because they have a quarterback who's the age a quarterback should be. They've got cohesion. They've got weapons. And I think Matt Ryan with 2 1A receivers can potentially beat out a couple of super old quarterbacks.
Yeah, interesting. They're just choke artists.
They are choke artists, but I got a bad feeling about Tampa Bay. I got a bad feeling about New Orleans. I think that division is really going to struggle to reach the hype across the board.
Yeah. All right, what do you got?
Okay, my next one. Tennessee Titans to make the playoffs is currently listed at minus 148.
Whoa.
Those odds are totally skewed. Do not touch it.
Yeah.
The Titans got hot for a couple weeks in January last year. Don't let that distract you from the fact that they were a fringe playoff contender. This division still belongs to Deshaun Watson until further notice. And to expect a team that lost their number 1 defensive tackle, Jarrell Casey, to the Denver Broncos and lost their best run blocking guard to Cleveland, I believe. And those odds are terrible. Minus 148. If they were plus odds, I'd maybe take a flyer, but to treat them like a presumptive playoff team, no dice.
No. And the Colts are a solid team. They have a chance, as well as the Texans, of taking that division. Yeah, that's crazy that they're minus 148. Definitely stay away from that.
All right, I've convinced Steve of something.
Absolutely. All right, my last stay away is I'm staying away from all 49ers deep playoff bets. We've all heard of this Super Bowl losing hangover thing. I looked it up. It's not as bad as you might expect. Let me see these stats. Only 2 of the last 10 Super Bowl losers haven't made the playoffs. So 8 of the last 10 Super Bowl losers went on to make the playoffs the next year. But only 1 team, which is the Patriots, made the Super Bowl after losing the Super Bowl the year before. It's already really hard to make the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. The NFL is really competitive. The NFC is really competitive. The NFC West is really competitive. So the 49ers, what are they? They're plus 500 to win the NFC. They're the favorite. I'm not touching that at all. Not even coming close to touching that. Plus 1,000 to win the Super Bowl. Not touching that either. And this is their numbers are weirdly low. Plus 500 seems like it's not a good bargain even for a casual bettor. The 49ers aren't a super public team. I guess they are now because they were in the Super Bowl last year.
And they kind of were when we were kids, weren't they?
In the Joe Montana days.
Yeah, Steve Young, Joe Montana, even Jeff Garcia was a public team. But just in the few years after Kaepernick, like Chip Kelly really hurt that franchise's star so much.
Yeah.
And let me just, I'm looking up the odds right now. I'm going to maybe think about, what about the San Francisco 49ers to miss the playoffs? What are the odds on those? Because like,
Dang.
that's a division with a lot of competent teams, a lot of competent coaches. So it's so feasible that you have them going 8-8, and then you see the Seahawks and the Rams or Cardinals represent that division in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, something to look at.
And my last bet to social distance away from, Raiders season win total over 7. Don't touch it. They're building they don't have the right quarterback to make their system work. Derek Carr is probably a high-end backup, low-end starter. And if you're just going to compare that team to the rest of their cohorts in the division, I think they have far and away the worst offense and defense of anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they're going to get smoked by their division, which is 5 or 6 losses right off the bat. And then I haven't looked at their schedule, but getting to 7, that's tough.
Yeah, because I think Denver and the Los Angeles Chargers have just a lot of talent up and down their rosters, and the Chiefs could well be the best football team ever assembled. So for the Raiders to be kind of in flux, to not have made meaningful strides in year 3 of the Gruden rebuild, I think this is the year things start to hit the fan for them.
Agreed. Not touching them. So those are your social distance, stay away from bets for the 2020 NFL season. I really hope we have a 2020 NFL season.
I think we will, but I think the 4-week late start is the way I'm going to anticipate this going.
And at this point, I'd be fine with that because we are getting baseball, we are getting basketball, and we are getting hockey. Those will hold me over until November. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, let's share the spotlight, Goodell. Push it back a little bit. There's enough for everybody. Do you realize if you push it back, I'll get a meaningful Lions game in January?
Yeah, for the first time. Man.
That was the monkey's paw that I wished upon that caused this whole COVID thing. I just want to see the Lions play a game in Black History Month. Your wish is granted.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Alison Klemp, the Joel's buddy, who is a big fan of the Washington former football team.
Warhawks.
Yeah.
Sentinels.
We're going to talk to her about everything that's been going on with that disaster of a franchise in the last month or so. So we'll be right back.
Okay. Thank you for sticking with us here at the Pilot on NFL podcast. Sometimes we like to express our opinions a little bit more, get into the depth of things. So joining us is a Washington football fan who is one of the more progressive people, one of the people I go to for my political conscience, and a very funny comedian at that. Say hello to Alison Klemp.
Hello.
What?
First, I have to apologize right off the bat for being Joel's political conscience. I didn't realize that was the level of responsibility that I held, and now I have some regrets, actually.
Yeah.
And just before we get into this serious conversation, this is a gambling podcast, and Allison witnessed possibly the worst poker meltdown of all time from me Monday night, and I got to apologize for it.
I don't know if you can call it a meltdown when you just announced your losing hand.
Here's the thing. We're in a poker game that's run by my math tutor. I'm 33 years old. I have a math tutor. Red flag number 1. And the same guy beats me every week. So I knew he was going to beat me again. So I just said, here are my cards. Beat me if you will. And
he did.
Yeah, you're not supposed to tell your hand in poker, apparently.
No.
Whoops.
Joel goes,
okay.
I have a 10 and an 8. And the guy thought he said ace, and he was like, what? What did you say?
And then I clarified.
And then he doubles down and he goes, I have a 10 and an 8. And he was like, oh, okay, well then I call.
And then I lost.
Yeah.
I lost the hand. I was out. So yeah, if you're taking gambling advice from me, joke's on you, sucker.
I was out first in that game, and it was so refreshing to not actually have been the worst player.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, I was up prohibitively too. This wasn't me coming from behind. I was in
Oh,
the
my
driver's seat
God.
and just flamed out. I'm a flamboyant moron, but if you listen to this show, you know that. So, Allison, you are a great fan of the Washington football team. I know because last year I didn't want to go to a Lions-Washington game. I was backing out, but you said, let's go down. We went down. We had a great time. First of all, in a vacuum outside of Dan Snyder and the controversies, what does this franchise mean to you?
So I was born in DC actually, and my older brother is a diehard Skins fan. And neither, we moved out of DC when I was little, and then we never really lived anywhere that had a team. So I didn't really care about the NFL that much, honestly. But my whole life growing up, it was the inundation I got was Redskins from my brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So that is basically how I guess I was indoctrinated. And I didn't start really following football, caring about football that much until after I went to college. So that point was when I started paying attention more. But for a long time, it was just kind of in the background of my life. But that's my origin story.
Wow.
Yeah, and if the people from the DMV area, they have more regional pride than anyone. If you know someone from Baltimore, you know every piece of trivia about Baltimore, and you can just see how the people have been kind of kept hostage by the Snyder administration. So when that story comes out, we're members of the same super dorky NFL comedians Facebook group, and I was offended to see men in the group kind of minimizing these stories of 15 women detailing their abuse. And I was really glad to see that you stepped up to the plate. You gave this guy Nathan Timmel, he's never been booked anywhere. He sucks. You gave him shit. And what do we say to men who don't grasp the realities of just how big this issue is?
I don't know. I feel for me, what really set me off with that was just, and I'm kind of still seeing it. It's not an uncommon view of people being oh, is that it? In response to the scandal. And I feel some of it comes from a place of people were expecting something that was more directly implicating Snyder himself.
Yeah.
And I think maybe people just, because of the nature of our world, were expecting some more gruesome details of sexual assault. And I think it really speaks to this entertainment aspect that we are now applying towards the whole Me Too movement, and in general this inability to discern nuance, because you see the people just kind of take the worst examples and sort of set that as the standard. So then when something else happens, it's well, he's not as bad as Harvey Weinstein, or he's not as bad as Cosby, as if that somehow absolves anyone of criminal sexual behavior.
Yes.
And yeah, for me, this guy, because I posted about the story. I posted the story in the group with the caption, all caps, so many feelings can't compute or something like that. And then this guy came in and was just oh, well, I was expecting something a little more. And it's just oh, I'm sorry it wasn't salacious enough for you. I'm sorry it wasn't entertaining enough for you that these women went to work every day and were continuously demeaned, and you can't deny that has long-lasting psychological effects on somebody. And a lot of these people, left those jobs and were I never want to work in this industry ever again. And another thing that I thought, aside from the sexual harassment issues that are kind of blatant, obviously in the story, it was just how little these people were being paid, and it's
Yep.
And then we'll get into it, I'm sure, in a bit about how much the value of the Redskins really increased while Snyder has owned the team. And then to find out that, people who are working in marketing for this extremely valuable franchise were getting paid as much as a public school teacher.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, and there were two pieces of information that made me you got to take these into account when viewing the story. this is a field where we know the demographics. It's hard for a woman to get a job in the NFL. And, you know, this was aired this came on the Washington Post, and they have a journalistic integrity to put their COVID-19 stats behind a paywall. But all of these were verified. And if you look at 15 verified women, it kind of suggests that this treatment was standard to every woman who worked for the franchise.
Yeah, and I'm sure people remember the story about the cheerleaders from 2 years ago.
Yep.
Which, honestly, I was really disappointed that didn't lead to any more kind of action. It's also, you know, of course, not just the Redskins as far as exploiting cheerleaders. Every single team who has cheerleaders does that.
Yes.
But like finding out that the cheerleaders were being pimped out to, you know, suite holders, and that somehow that didn't create any kind of reckoning is just like, of course there's more going on. And of course there's more going on, I think, than just the story that came out in the Washington Post. Like you said, Joel, that's like what they were able to verify.
Yep.
And the fact that, I think all of those women, or all but one of the women, were not able to get released from their NDAs. So
it's insane. And this is happening all over the league. Like a ton of women have come out since the story dropped saying that their experience working for different NFL or sports franchises in general has been very similar. So this is just shedding a light on a massive problem with, you know, women working in sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think like what you bring up with the cheerleader scandal is like, they're basically giving suite holders privilege, like the ability to ogle these women in coastal islands. Like if you put that with this article that's verified 15 different ways, you really see a toxic culture that this behavior is absolutely acceptable, and they should be held accountable for that. Before we move on into Dan Snyder's backstory, I do have like a little bit of a conspiracy. We all know Amazon's putting their second headquarters in Virginia. They got booted out of New York City, and Amazon knows they have a problem with local reputations, and Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Do you think there's any credence to my kind of insane conspiracy theory that this is Jeff Bezos trying to oust Snyder and ingratiate himself with the people of the DMV?
I mean, I hope that's not true, but I would not be surprised, because if you can find a fucking rich white guy who is more evil than Dan Snyder, it is definitely Jeff Bezos. So.
Yeah, but this is the only way Jeff Bezos can get some positive PR. He's the only person with a public divorce that didn't engender any sympathy. So
yeah.
If you were, okay, you're going to bed, you're on Reddit conspiracy. If you see my post about that, do you give it an upvote?
I would give it an upvote, yes.
We also talk about, I know this is, I mean, it's a little different. It's crazy that that Washington is embroiled in so many different controversies at once. Before we get into Dan Snyder, the name thing going on right now, and like how you as a fan have, like, how do you come to terms with, because I'm a Rams fan. This is not the same, but this is how I'm going to try to like compare them. When the Rams moved from Los Angeles to when they moved from St. Louis to Los Angeles, I kind of told myself I was not buying any more Rams merchandise. I was not supporting the franchise until Stan Kroenke dies and goes to hell. So as like a Redskins fan, formerly Redskins fan, what have you tried to make rationalizations in your head to make yourself like, make it seem okay that, you know what I mean?
That I support the team?
Yeah, or just like the fact that they've done so little in the past to try to make amends for this like horrific name and all this stuff. Like as a fan, does that hit you? Does that make you like the team any less?
I mean, for me, I always just try to focus on the players.
Yep, that's what I do too.
You know, and try to not directly support the team in any way, you know? So It's like if I buy a jersey and getting it at a thrift store,
yep,
that kind of thing. When we went to the game, we bought our tickets on StubHub,
yeah.
Support a different corrupt organization. And honestly, glad we went. It was on the first Redskins home game I ever attended. Maybe the last of NFL game we'll ever be able to attend. So
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, we got to see Dwayne Haskins take a selfie with a fan.
Nice. That was a good game to be at.
yeah,
Yeah, for Allison, it was definitely.
one of the few wins of the season. So definitely.
And I feel like this is the Donald Sterling situation so much. This is a smoking gun, but there's so much in Dan Snyder's history that disqualifies him from NFL ownership.
Yeah, I mean, name aside, he should have been kicked out a long time ago.
Yep.
But, I'm also just to further answer your question about like how I reckon it with the team. I mean, I've definitely evolved my views of it over the years. I've definitely been that person who has, said things like most Native people aren't even bothered by it,
Right.
and stuff like that. And I've, relied on information like, oh, look, this like Native area uses the name as their school mascot and like things like
Right.
that to just kind of like justify it in my own head. And honestly, just the more that I've learned about it and the more perspectives that I've heard from different people has helped me kind of evolve my views from those of a drunken 21-year-old. And, if you haven't evolved your own opinions on the world since you were a drunken 21-year-old, I don't know, you might want to look at yourself a little
Yes.
bit.
Yes.
None of us had it right then.
Yes.
And if you are a 21-year-old, you're in for a rude awakening. Come back from seeing your frogs. Yeah, and I feel like I felt that Dan Snyder was in no way qualified to own an NFL team just based on the parking situation we experienced. We didn't buy a Washington football team parking pass. So in essence, we were punished. It took us 4 hours to get out of the parking lot
Love
for
that.
a sparsely attended game.
Yeah.
And, NFL ownership, there's 32 people who own teams.
31.
I believe. 31? Oh, right. Sorry, Steve. Who owns? Yeah, the Packers.
I'm just here to fact check. Yeah.
Yeah, fact checker Steve. So I think there's stuff in his history that like it's amazing he was vetted for NFL ownership, considering like he made his money targeting people with cancer and people with diabetes as like a profitable segment.
Yeah. So what did he do prior to buying the team? What was his how did he make his money?
He made his money. He made these advertising boards that he put in doctors' offices.
Okay.
That you could get free samples if you were for cancer or diabetes. It would offer different prescription drugs, and he had a contract to put these up in doctors' offices all over the country, and he would just acquire other competitors, and then he sold it right before the telecommunications bubble burst in 1999.
Interesting.
It wasn't a sound business. It was he just got out at the right moment.
Right.
He also expanded it with telemarketing. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, and like
real big guy built a telemarketing empire.
Yeah.
And if you think the name is insensitive to minorities, like telemarketing, he targeted ESL people, and he signed them up as a practice for services they didn't agree to purchasing.
Oh God.
And that was a big part of his telecommunications profits.
Yep.
And if we want to talk about this culture in the football team, where like, if you're good with Snyder, you can do whatever you want. Just look at how Snyder arranges his real estate. He bought a house on federally protected land. He had 100 historic trees torn down. And then when a park ranger tried to come after him for this, he used his connections with DC level agencies to have this ranger raided and put under charges.
Sick.
Yeah, he was too, I think.
Yeah,
great.
Sounds like a real jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he also he would charge people like extra fines for to like jump the line for season ticket holding. And what did he do? Like so many things.
Didn't he sue season
added,
ticket holders?
He added enhanced security fees after 9/11.
Oh, nice.
For tickets for the game. He also tried to sell a 9/11 commemorative hat.
Love to profit off of that. Yeah.
That was like, there was no mention of like, oh, and this is going to go to support some fund.
No.
It was just the Redskins hat with the Pentagon on the side.
And it's weird. It wasn't even a 5-sided hat, you know? There were still just the normal 6 panels. And like, Dan Snyder, it's like people have this perspective. It's like you have an NFL owner, you deserve to be there, but no one has had a harder time purchasing a team than Dan Snyder. Like, he borrowed the money to purchase the team. The NFL didn't want to approve him.
Oh,
he
wow.
had to fly and meet with every other owner personally. And ultimately, they really only approved this purchase because he's a local kid who loved this team his entire life. So it's like, I kind of feel like it's the Donald Sterling situation, because it's like the NFL kind of knew this guy didn't deserve to belong in the ownership group. And after 20 years, I think we've seen that played out.
Yeah, well, in his 20 years of owning the team, we've had 4 winning seasons. So
Oh my God.
really doing a great job. Like,
Yeah,
I don't understand why that alone is not like
Right.
cause for him to lose the team, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the fact that he shouldn't be there, the fact that he's running a culture of sexual corruption, the fact that he can't get even marginally responsible medical staff together. Look at the numbers of lawsuits from former players.
Mm-hmm.
That's the medical staff issue is what I feel like I'm like constantly screaming into a void about it, you know? It's just like the Redskins is great at ruining players. That's just like all we are good at. I really fear for Dwayne Haskins' future.
Yeah. Poor Alex Smith.
And that was the most fun rumor that came out of this. There was that 24-hour to 48-hour period of speculation, and like my favorite. Did you have a favorite rumor of what it was?
I don't know.
My favorite rumor was a backup running back slept with Jay Gruden's girlfriend, and the running back was benched and blew the block that ruined Alex Smith's career.
Yeah, that was going to be the bombshell that the Washington Post was going to drop.
Yeah.
Was that story, or that they paid off the refs? Like, what are they paying them to do? They've lost every game they've ever played.
Yeah, they're not getting their money's worth if that's what it was.
No, yeah.
But, you know, as we've noted, Dan Snyder is a terrible businessman. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after 21 years of ownership, what has he done well? Is there a single example of them even being competent?
No, not as a team. I mean, he's enriched the team and he's enriched himself, but that's it. You know,
Right.
Dan Snyder he just capitalizes on failing businesses and then lines his pockets and then gets out. That's like what he does.
Is there like precedence on, at least in the NFL, on ousting an owner like this, like in a situation like this? Like, is there something people can do?
I don't believe there is, because the NFL Board of Governors it's the owners league. Roger Goodell is beholden to them. And I don't even know how they would even steer the agenda towards ousting one of their people. It needs to be a DC PR nightmare. And that's why it's really disheartening to me to see this story blow up blow over in a week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, people in this country don't really care about women. So
Yeah.
People with influence in the sports world also don't really care about women. So,
absolutely.
You know, it's unfortunately not terribly surprising.
Right.
So what is your plan moving forward to this season? Let's say we get week 1. Let's say Washington's playing. Are you tuning in, or what's your take there?
I mean, last year I said I wasn't really going to watch, and I still watched. So, you know, it's, especially with everything going on with COVID, I feel like it's kind of hard not to watch the train wreck aspect of it all, to see like how badly are they going to fuck all this up, you know?
Yep.
And so I mean, I'm kind of just going to continue with my like not directly financially supporting the team in any way and kind of watching from a distance. I don't know how they're going to do this without a name.
Yeah. So do you have a preference on, do you have like do you have a name that you want them to use?
I personally would love to see code breakers.
That's so sick. I've never even heard that before.
Yeah, it's I think the best way to like actually honor Native American people and also incorporate the military, which I think is something that they want to do.
Right.
The Navajo Nation president is lobbying for that as a name change.
That's awesome.
But I know that there's like a huge push towards like keeping red in the name, especially keep HTTR. Red wolves, I really don't want it to be red tails. That's like my one thing. I'm like very strong against red tails.
I think that's the name that Dwayne Haskins does want.
Well, sorry, Dwayne. You're gonna listen to him.
I'm for red tails. All I want is pictures of Dwayne Haskins dressed up like an old-timey pilot. He's lost 30 pounds. He's going to rock that photo shoot, don the leather helmet, put on the Amelia Earhart wardrobe. Let's see it, Dwayne.
I mean, I'm all for that. That does sound fun. I don't know. Like turning, like the tail is like not like a good, metaphor for, games. Like
yes.
We've shown our tail to too many teams, I would say. Also, it's not, I feel like it's kind of, red tails is Alabama's thing. It's not our
right.
thing. So
yeah.
It's a little appropriative in a different way.
Yeah.
But the Red Wolves, I started coming around to it because then I realized that there's like only like, I think 20 actual Red Wolves left in the wild. And like that kind of name recognition could actually go a long way toward helping rehabilitate the species. And so, I don't know. I'm not confident that the name is going to be something I like because it is still a Dan Snyder run organization.
Yeah.
But I am, like many people, putting a lot of hopes onto Ron Rivera's shoulders. So
yeah. And what's really sad is that they're going to make so much money when they rebrand. They're going to make so much money from having a bad name for so long. It stinks.
Yeah, and Dan Snyder's investment, the Washington football team is worth 37 times what he paid for it already. And with a name change, you're probably going to see it hit 50-fold. So this just continues Dan Snyder's track record of failing upwards.
Yeah.
Arguably more than any man in America right now.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, sick. At least the whole world is ending, but at least we still have the mediocre white men making a ton of money all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very BFJ, as my boyfriend's mom would say.
BFJ?
Bad for Jews. Not doing a lot of great PR for the image.
Oh my gosh, you just brought our episode full circle because of course, we're an NFL podcast. We had to start off by talking about Louis Farrakhan. What is this world we've come to?
Yeah.
Well,
tight.
Alison, thank you for coming on today. I do appreciate you. We can find you on the Tableverse podcast, can't we?
Yes, absolutely. At the Tableverse on social media. And then you can find me at Alison Klemp. Just my name spelled out. Don't spell it wrong.
Yeah, one L, unlike Washington in their first 2 weeks.
Yes.
Ooh.
Come on, you got to go out with a quip.
Thank you so much, Alison, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, appreciate you. I'll see you Monday at poker.
Yep. Bye. I have a 10 and an 8.
That is it for this episode of the Pilot On podcast. Thank you guys for listening and watching on YouTube. Joel, what do you have to say for yourself?
This was a great time in one of the hardest outlines. I was dreading this one, but we had some laughs. We had some jokes. We had some fun with a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Hopefully we will be back soon once training camps start up. We've yet to have a plan for how the season. We're going to cover the season because we don't know how the season will be.
Yep.
But in the meantime, if you like me, I was on Jamoke Davis's podcast last week. I had a blast.
Yeah, I have a bone to pick with that. If Jamoke is listening right now, where's my invite? You invited Joel before you invited me? I had Jamoke on my podcast like 6 months ago that I was doing. I'm mad.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's been me gassing up all the Props Network guys. It's like, let me talk NBA for you, please. let me. It's all I do anyway. So have on Steve Jamoke.
Yeah.
And he'll talk some trash. He'll bring our basketball rivalry to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow Joel on Twitter at Joel Walkowski. No, the Big Walkowski.
The Walkowski.
The Big Walkowski was canceled.
Yeah, and we canceled it in pretty great ways, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
And I didn't cancel it, Steve. I postponed it. The current plan is to
November, right?
Yeah, do it indoors, Thanksgiving weekend. If we can pull that off, great.
We should
if not,
we should do a bubble. We should get tested and then do a bubble for 2 weeks.
I think enough people have made that joke to me that I'm not certain it's a joke.
I'm willing to do it. If we each had to spend like a couple $100 to all stay in like a few Airbnbs that are near a basketball court for 2 weeks, I'd be in.
Yeah. If we get the $600 a week unemployment extended, let's look into it.
But yeah, that's it for us today. We'll see you guys hopefully when there's football happening. Hopefully the next time we talk, Joel, there's like people in pads playing football.
Yeah, and until that happens, go watch Invincible on Disney Plus. What a time. Loved that flick.
And watch baseball. I mean, this is coming out Thursday morning, so tonight there's 2 baseball games, 2 real baseball games. I'm so excited for baseball.
Okay, so I want to put down a bet on these games. I see the Washington money line is plus 125 versus the Yankees.
Okay. I like that because they probably have Scherzer on the mound, right?
They do have Scherzer on the mound.
I would take that.
And then the Dodgers with Kershaw are a prohibitive favorite. I'm thinking of going the other way and taking the road Giants.
Eesh, that's tough.
It's minus 1.5, minus 145. So there's some pretty big odds there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably stay away from that game, but I would take the Nationals. That seems like a good bet.
Okay, we'll be on the Nationals tomorrow. Both of us. Sign it in blood.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Pilot On Podcast, I think. It's been a while since we've done a Twitter follower update because this podcast has gone out of control since NFL stopped, but follow us. We'd love to have you.
We would.
We will see you soon.